Greetings. This is the Counter-Racist Evolving Engineer Program. The acronym for the program is CREE, C-R-E-E, and that is my handle. The date is July 15th, 2019. It's my solar return tomorrow, not today. This Saturday, I had to cut and run from the broadcast that I intended to do, and it wasn't the full breadth of what I wanted to do. So this is part two. I had hoped that I'd be able to come back during the weekend, but this is as soon as I could do it. I'm recording this at about 2 a.m. I'm a nocturnal person. So I'm recording this at about 2 a.m. on Monday morning. It's about 5 a.m. Some of you are rising and shining on the East Coast. It's still 4 a.m. East Coast. And see, it's about 9 a.m. UK time. I'm going to be premiering this afternoon, my time, probably 4ish, which will be enough time for people to get home from work on the East Coast. And this is part two of restraining our empathy and contempt. In part one, we talked about restraining our empathy for the problems of immigrants under the guise of being humane and being more humane than other people, etc., etc. I'd encourage you to go back and take a look at that. I talked about politics being a blood sport. If they don't care about the blood rolling down the cul-de-sac, and I'm talking about the immigrants, they don't care about all the homeless black people on the street who can't see their children because these immigrants are throwing away the applications, both Asian and Hispanic, of qualified black people who come in for jobs, whether they be sitting in city halls or in companies. They don't care. A lot of the social workers out here on the West Coast are Hispanic, and they see a disproportionate and inordinate number of black children and mothers being separated for ridiculously long periods of time. They don't care. When complaints are raised, when op-ed pieces are written by black social workers, Hispanic social workers don't stand for us. They're okay with it. Now, we have been championing their causes for long enough to where now, when we realize that reciprocation is due, that politics requires you support my agenda, I support yours in tangible ways, both ways. Now that we realize that they have to go first, we've been hand-holding and giving them our support without anything being given in return, at no cost to them. We've been giving it to them free. So they owe us. So no, we don't go first. We've already paid down our down payment towards, limited allyship for practical reasons. Okay, we've already done that. So no, we don't go first. They go first, and they must do it for a prolonged period of time, at least as long as we did it, at least half as long as we did it, without getting paid back in terms of their reciprocation. So they go first, and they go along. They have to really substantiate their support for us. And then we can talk about what it is that we're willing to trade for that support. You support my agenda, I support yours. So that was the empathy thing. This is about outrage. And the last one was about outrage too, controlling outrage. Some things are just not worth being outraged about. Because the more you think about something, the more you talk about it, the more you type it, the more you burrow circuits in your brain that make you more concerned about the thing, and you might just be getting angrier and angrier. There are certain things that the more you think about them, the angrier you get. The more you do about it, the more outraged you get, and it's just not efficient. We only have, so much on this earth is a zero sum. We have limited amounts of time and mental and emotional energy. We need to attend to the affairs of our own just as they're attending to the affairs of theirs. We can attend to our affairs and theirs through a joint initiative alliance in which we are actually getting tangibles back from them. But until that happens, no, we need to attend to our own affairs. We got dirty water, we got lead in the water and all kinds of stuff in the water, and cities where there are large concentrations of black people, we have a lot of problems. We need to attend to the problems of our people and our children. Okay. That was the empathy thing. Okay, so the outrage thing. Oh, so yeah, so we have to be selective about those things that we get outraged about. Okay, we need to get outraged about our own conditions, and it's the serious conditions. Now, getting outraged about something Chris Brown said in his lyrics about nice hair, it's not that hair is an insignificant issue. It's that him talking about it can be made insignificant. What do I mean? What I mean is that, not having rated him as black or white, what I mean is that he's an entertainer who may have his preferences. Okay? I have my preferences. Now, I can talk about them without enumerating them, putting a number on them too hard. Because the analytics from my own videos and by watching the drop-offs in the live streams in Corey's on my mind, in Kofi's videos is when we start applying numbers to determine whether or not somebody's black or white. And that happens, I think, for two reasons. Black people don't want to hear about numbers concretizing whether or not somebody is black or white, simply because they don't want to be pushed in the corner. They don't want anything concrete to nail down whether or not the people that are in their family that they love or that they want to pursue, marry, date, sex, and all that kind of stuff. They don't want to hear, they don't want to hear that person's not black. It's like sometimes when I go to the doctor, I'm not wanting to hear that number that you're coming out for me for weight. It's like even if I'm feeling good about my body, I'm still stuck on numbers from my youth. So now I don't want to hear the number. You just don't give me a number. I'm not interested in the number. The number does something to me. It concretizes something, especially if I'm not feeling particularly wonderful about my body at that point in time. So that's one reason. The other reason is that black people just have like a reticence against certain kinds of numbers. Like, they're good with this numbers in sports and stuff like that, but certain things they just feel like they should get by gut feeling, by quote unquote intuition. That they feel like they should just know in their gut, in their spirit, whether or not somebody is a brother or sister, whether or not they're black, and that's gotten us into some trouble. It seems like it's a cartoon that Rachel Dolezal got through, but it's not a cartoon, because there have been people who look just like her who we have seriously held as black for over a century. So it's not a joke. She's not a cartoon. And this whole intuition thing, and then trying to rationalize it by one black parent or black culture and all that kind of stuff, that doesn't work for us. We can't be going by that. We need something concrete. Okay? So if you're on that borderline of trying to make yourself get comfortable with the discomfort of numbers, I would encourage you to just do that for a bit, and you will become more comfortable with it, and you will find that the tool actually helps you appreciate the featuring of the people of your phenotype, and therefore yourself. It helps you appreciate yourself more, get more comfortable in your own body, and to love your own body and your own traits. I know it did that for me. I already had that, but once I started looking in detail, more detail at the phenotype of black people and people in between, I started to realize the traits of the people of my phenotype that I really, really appreciate and prefer, and it's part of that process. Now, this is something that non-black people, and since we're in this part of the world, I'm going to talk about the pink European people, have been knowing and doing for a while. They've been noticing the differences between the kinds of people and ranking them and giving the words to their type the most exalted words, and they've been putting it in their literature, they've been putting it in their art, they've been putting it in their nursery rhymes, in their magazines, and their videos and stuff. They've been making sure that they can differentiate between the two, and that they give the most exalted terms to their type. But first you have to recognize the differences. So this is the beginning for us, is to recognize in detail the differences, just as white people have always done. They're still doing it to this day, modern times. And I have a tab where I'm going to show you that. But I also have a graphic where I'm going to show you that they've been doing this for hundreds of years. Recognizing the differences, that's the beginning. And then appreciating and exalting your own. Okay, now so I'll be as honest as I can bear. If I'm being completely honest, I have a sweet spot of hair that I like. Okay, the Cree tool does a 0 through 3 system, but a system that people are very familiar with is the 1A through 4C system. And I'll tell you that my very favorite hair on the planet is 3C and 4A hair. That's my sweet spot. I love that hair. It's very substantial. I like hair that is substantial. I like hair that when I know that when I put my hands in it, it's going to be as substantial as it looks. I don't like it when my fingers fall directly onto the scalp. It seems weak to me. I just don't like it. I like hair with character that's substantial. And that 3C through 4A hair is substantial, and at the same time it has little individual features where you might be able to feel a little something at the end of your fingertips. So to me, that's just the most beautiful hair in the world. However, I do not dislike 4B and 4C hair. That has a lot of character to it as well. I certainly prefer it to the levels below it. On my own head, I have the whole range from about 1B to 4C, the whole range. And I have substantial parts of my hair of each type. The average type is, I'd say probably about 40% of my hair is 3C or 4A. And recognizing that differences has just made me really appreciate the hair of the people of my phenotype. So I mean, we're going to be using that tool that's beginning that process of maybe helping other people do the same thing, but I'm going to rate Chris at the end. Okay, let's move on to the next person in this thumbnail, which is ASAP Rocky, who said that very thing, that disturbing thing. Let me get back to the whole hair thing. If there were never this artificial implement called a comb, if nobody on the earth had ever invented that of any racial type, do you realize that there wouldn't be any idea of good and bad hair the way that we think about it? There would be good and bad hair. It would be, thick hair, healthy hair would probably, but of various types. And I got a feeling that our hair, particularly, American hair, would be considered probably the best hair. But there is a logic to good and bad hair, and it's premised on something that nobody ever questions, or very few people question. People are beginning to question it just now in the last 5 or 6 years. You can see that with the hairstyles of young men, particularly. You really get to see it on display in the NBA, where they get their edge ups, but they just let their hair just grow naturally. They keep it clean, and it doesn't look like a comb touches it. It's just beautiful. It's lumpy. It has great character to it. And women can do variations of that. You wouldn't necessarily have to line up. But, you might have something hanging here, something hanging to the side here, something pulled together here. But you don't have to put a comb through it. You don't have to go through a bunch of pain. See, good hair, if you've never, ever questioned that the beginning of good grooming, as far as the hair is concerned, you cannot be well groomed unless you comb it. If you can't get that out of your head, if you can't question that, then there is good hair. Good hair is hair that the hair of the brush goes through easily with the least amount of pain and the least amount of effort. You don't have to stand there or sit there all day holding the ends of your hair, going little by little, trying to get the comb through it and get every single tangle out. So it doesn't take a bunch of time. That's what good hair is. Or do it real fast and just rip through your scalp. And by the time a child is 7 years old and they've had to go through the equivalent of minor surgery every morning just to be presentable to the world, do you think that hasn't communicated that something to their conscious and subconscious mind, that they are not good enough the way they look? because it's never been questioned that combing your hair is like brushing your teeth. It's totally unnecessary. Little water, little product, some scissors to get rid of that little hanging balls here and there. But you don't have to get rid of every single tangle. It's like trying to make sure that no leaf is on top of any other leaf in the shrubbery outside your house. It's absurd. Corn silk and shrubberies are entirely different geometries. Okay, so the comb is at the root of all that. No pun intended. If that was a pun, I'm not sure. All right, A$AP Rocky, he said what he said. He's a black man. We don't have to put him on any algorithm and decide if he's black. He's a troll. He said some very problematic things about black women specifically, and he has said some very problematic things about black people generally. And now he finds himself in a Sweden jail that is at odds with the things that he has said. And we'll get into more detail about that when I pull up the tabs and we can just start talking about it. But I still say he's a troll because all we have to do is just not feed him. Just don't give him any positive attention. Don't let his name or Chris Brown's names come off your fingertips on Facebook or Twitter. Don't go to his concerts. Don't download any of his music. Don't play him on Spotify or Pandora. And that takes care of that. Do I have to wish that he has been mistreated in a Swedish jail? No. Do I have to wish harm? No. Can I turn my head and be concerned with other things, just like with these immigrants? Yeah, sure can. I can do that without any guilt. Now, this third troll we have to make irrelevant in a different kind of way. She's a much more dangerous troll because she is a non-black woman impersonating a black woman, and therefore able to say things and get away with things that a non-black person wouldn't necessarily, because the level of suspicion that we as black people have has been disarmed because we think she's black. And she'll just keep saying it over and over again. Now, there have been people who've been questioning two things. They've been questioning whether or not she's black, and they've been questioning whether or not she's an American descendant of slavery, and she has an answer for both. The more important question is whether or not she's black. Why? Because even if you're not an American descendant of slavery, if you broadly define slavery, as I'm going to show, should be done. I'm going to show it in a couple of the videos that I'm going to show about what's happening in Italy right now and what was happening in the United States in the 1940s. Both of them are supposedly not during chattel slavery, but I'm thinking you're going to be hard-pressed, just like me, to say that these two conditions were not slavery. And to some degree, these conditions of slavery obtain to this day for almost all black people, certainly in the United States and almost all over the world. Okay? Which is, a huge differential in what we get for our labor versus what other people get for their labor, and that there is some level of violence or coercion. The coercion is with the threat of violence if we don't do it, and sometimes violence can just be that you don't have enough to eat or you don't have a roof over your head. Okay. So she'll be allowed to do that kind of stuff. She'll be allowed to advocate for policies if she gets in as POTUS, or even if she just continues to be elected as senator of the state of California. But she might make a second run for POTUS if she doesn't make it this time. If she's allowed to do that, she can do some very dangerous things. I'm going to let Kofi talk about when we get to the point of rating her. He's going to rate her and also evaluate her political positions all at once. So we'll, be talking about Kamala Harris, Kamala. There's a reason I'm calling her both. Kofi will explain. We're going to talk about the danger she poses to black people as an impersonator of a black woman. And also he'll rate her. And then I'll rate Chris Brown at the end as well. But the way that we have to not feed her troll is to not vote for her. And secondly, we can't ignore her. She is employing the psychological technique of repetition. it's been well demonstrated by psychological studies that if you repeat something over and over and over again, even if it's false, people will believe it's true. Even if at first people point out the logical fallacies or the untruths about it, if that person just ignores it and just keeps repeating the falsehood over and over and over again, people will believe it. So there are people, so she just says, I'm a black woman, I'm a black woman, I'm a black woman. People say, no, you're not black, you're not black. Oh, how dare you say I'm not black, da 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 da. Now she scares people off. Well, we're not saying you're not black, we're just saying you're not an American descendant of slavery, you're not ADOS. And then she pivots and says, well, now you're using the same techniques that they used against Barack Obama with his nativist talk, saying that he was born in Indonesia. It's not the same thing, but she's pivoted off of it. But the more important part is that she's not a black woman. So we just say she's not black. She says, I'm black, I'm black, I'm black. We have to counteract that by being just as repetitive. You're not a black woman. You are not a black woman. A black woman, you are not. You are not a black woman. We have to be just as repetitive. Okay, and so we're going to rate her, show why it's problematic. And that's how we're going to handle her, and we're not going to give her our vote. And, our countering it will help not give her our vote. So I will move right now into the tabs that I will narrate. Okay, so I want to make sure I didn't do what I did last time and have that on top of everything. Go to my display capture, my tabs. Chris Brown. Yeah, Chris Brown had a lyric in one of his songs that said, here it is. I only want to F the black beaches with the nice hair. Now we know what he means by nice hair. He hasn't, I'm sure, thought about it as combable, but we're talking about stuff that's not a tight coil. Stuff that's kind of lank, that blows, some. And you see people were just outraged by it. They're slamming him so much that the LA Times did an article about it. So we're feeding the trolls. Okay? I don't think that's necessary. I'm going to come back to this one. I'm going to move this tab so that I know to come back to it, because I'm going to be braiding. Shoot. I didn't want to show that, but it's cool. All right, then we move on to ASAP Rocky. And, ASAP Rocky had said something about dark-skinned black women not being able to wear certain shades of lipstick. And then he really basically said that a light-skinned woman can do anything a dark-skinned black woman could do, or a light-skinned woman of any race, right? But he also directed his comments to black people generally. And I don't know what reporter asked him this question, but the question was asked, here it is, I'm going to highlight it. No, I can't highlight it because that's a picture. So it's right here. Do you ever feel like you're being forced to address these issues? And he said, they're not forcing me to do sheet. I'm just going to stay black and die. I have no problem with that so far. Why? And then he was saying, why? Because I'm black? So every time something happens because I'm black, I got to stand up? What the F am I? Al Sharpton now? I'm ASAP Rocky. I did not sign up to be no political activist. I have no problem with anything that he has said up to this point. Zero. Okay, you didn't. You don't have to. If you want to circumscribe your life to this small sphere, you are free to do that, dear. I have no problems with that. I know I sure don't feel like I have to represent for everything black that anything that black people do. It's not my job. Opening up my Diet 7-Up here. Yeah, I don't want to be called upon to talk about everything black, everything happening on the job, or if I'm on a contract, or just period. I mean, I can't do that. I don't have a problem with that. And especially if you don't think you're qualified. Took my little sip there. Okay, no problems with that. And then he said, I want to talk about my MF and lean, my best friend dying, the girls that come in and out of my life, the jiggy fashion that I wear, my new inspirations in drugs. I don't have any problem with that. I'm I'm very drug positive. Certain drugs I don't think you should take because they're bad for your health. But I'm looking for those plant guides. I'm looking for that portal. I'm looking for anything that will tilt my perception and see other dimensions. I mean, like in physics, other dimensions, that I can experience through this psychedelic. Yeah, I'm cool with that. It's not like I want to do it all the time, but I want to be informed by it because I know that what I can see and sense with my 5 senses is such a small sliver of reality that's affecting me and that I'm participating in. Yeah, I get it. Okay, I have no issue, ASAP Rocky, with what you have said that I have read so far. But then you go on to say, I don't want to talk about no effing Ferguson and ish because I don't live over there. What? That's the reason? I live in effing Soho in Beverly Hills. I can't relate. Now that's where I have the problem. What you mean you can't relate? I don't know a single rich black person who doesn't know what it means to be black. Anywhere, not just this country. Every black person I've ever known who's traveled, when that plane lands on the landing strip and you're taxiing to get out, and if it's not a black country, you have some anxiety about how they treat black people where you are. You know darn well. And that you don't even have to go to another country. Come on, dude. You didn't always live in Beverly Hills and Soho. Where are you from? You guys can watch me type this up. I know he's not from there. So I'm going to say ASAP Rocky. Where were you? Where did you born and grow up? That's probably, I've just put his name in and go to Wiki and I spelled it wrong. And we will see where you grew up. ASAP Rocky. Let's go to your personal life, early life. Lord. He was born in Harlem. His father was from Barbados. His mother is African American. Let's see. He moved to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. That Harrisburg, Pennsylvania is no Soho or Manhattan. When he was 12 years old, his father went to jail in connection with selling drugs. He died in 2012. His brother was killed in Harlem. When he was 13, his brother was killed in Harlem. And you can't relate to black people's situation because you now reside in Beverly Hills and Soho. Now you're just lying. Now you're just being dishonest. But worse than that, you're leading black people to believe that if they just get enough money, younger black people, you're leading a lot of younger black people to believe that they just get enough money, God, and a lot of silly 40-year-old black people too, particularly the men, they just get enough money, they won't be subject to racism, anti-blackness. And now I can't, and people like me can't recruit them for the larger problem that we have, that is constraining our talents and our agency, the system of anti-blackness, because they think they won't affect them if they get enough money. Now you're doing damage. You're lying, and your lying is doing damage to me and people that I care about. Okay, so this is the problem I have with what he said. If all he said is, "Hey, listen, I want to just enjoy my money and live a really narrow life," that's your privilege. That's your decision, fella. But now you've gone too far. So he's a troll. We have to make sure we don't feed him. Let's finish. He's got disgusting things to say. I'm in the studio. I'm in these fashion studios. I'm in these beaches, draws. I'm not doing anything outside of that. That's my life. Well, I mean, you know, your stuff can get taken from you at any time, but that's okay if you got what you got. But apparently you went into some delusion. You went into Sweden, a super white country. I saw on video where you were involved in some altercation. I don't know if you initiated it. Perhaps you did not. Perhaps it was not your fault. What you were charged with, I don't know if the charges are proportionate to what it is that you did, or if you shouldn't have been charged at all. But I know nobody should be being held in inhumane conditions in the institution that is incarcerating them. Well, okay. I'm not wishing harm on you, but I don't have time to worry about it. Not after what you said. Not after what you said about black women and black people generally. I hope life taught you that you can't run. I hope. And then maybe you'll be able to, earn our trust and respect back. But right now, I don't have any problem turning my head. Because I know what the vast majority, 90+% of black men, I know what they think of black women. I don't even have to know them, just like I don't have to know each and every non-black person to know what they think about black people. I know there are exceptions in both cases, but we don't live our lives based on the exception. Right? There are exceptions to the fact that the sun rises and sets every day, because there are periods of time in Alaska where that's not true, but that's not the rule for most of us. We don't live our lives by exceptions. There are certain rattlesnakes that don't bite. But I have found through my incredibly numerous dealings with black males online and in person, that I know what to expect almost all of the time. So unless I personally can vouch that this black male has for a sustained period of time supported the needs of black women and girls, my assumption is that they are not in our favor. So what, I'm going to spend a bunch of time getting upset about that all the time? No, we got to make some moves. We'll make some moves to put ourselves in a better position. And then we can negotiate with black men at that point. Okay? But I would definitely restrain my outrage for him. I would just not feed the troll. Just not talk about him. Okay. So I want to talk about slavery, because slavery is part of this whole ADOS thing. And I have said that I don't think that there is a black person who has ever been in the United States, or I didn't say there was, I said that there are very few black people in the United States who have escaped slavery, broadly defined. So rather than me saying a whole bunch of words about a broader definition of slavery than just the chattel slavery that may or may not have been the predominant condition of black people in the colonies and in the United States, may or may not have been. The slavery may have been something different. It may have been about what you're about to see in these clips from these next two videos. But rather than me going into a whole bunch of verbiage about that, let me just play you this video about Italy or what is being called slavery in Italy, and then another one that is very similar and that I think very few people would say was not slavery, but it was here in the United States, and it was somewhere between 40 and 80 years after the end of the Civil War in 1865, or the end of supposed chattel slavery. Okay, and they're going to be very similar. What's happening right now in 2019 in Italy and what was happening right here in the United States 40 to 80 years, 40 to 80 years after the supposed end of chattel slavery. This has a lot to do with the whole reparations argument, whether or not people who went through all of the other forms of broader slavery, if you get what I'm getting at after these two videos, are doing reparations as is provided for in House Resolution 40 that's being studied by the Senate and Congress. Okay, so here we go. Now remember, at the end of this video, I'm going to rate Chris Brown and Kamala Harris as whether or not they're black people. But let's talk about slavery right now. What does it look like? Do I want to turn my mic off for this? I do.
The caporale pushes you. He says, "Oh, you've left some tomatoes there." He shouts at you, "Pick them up, pick them up." If anything's left, he's not happy. He shoves you and slaps you in the face. He hurts you. He has no respect for you, and that is slavery. Slavery, not just exploitation. Exploitation is something like poor pay, but when they push you, when you have to work in the burning sun and have no say, no papers, and you sleep in the ghettos, all that is slavery. Modern slavery. Slavery doesn't require chains. No, slavery is what's happening here. This is slavery.
Ivan Sanier calls them slaves, the hundreds of thousands of seasonal farm workers from Africa and Eastern Europe on fields in Italy. Ivan, who comes from Cameroon, was once one of them. Today, he fights for their rights and against a mafia-style system of dumping prices, abuse of power and exploitation. Ivan wants to bring the people who profit from that system behind bars and end the farm workers' inhumane living conditions.
This is typical housing for the immigrants. They use the fireplace for all kinds of things because there's no electricity, no light, no running water, nothing. But they know how to help themselves. They use this for heating and cooking. Here's the table. Here's oil and the plates they eat off of. Look, here are 8 mattresses. Maybe 40 people can sleep here. 40 people. You've seen it. This is a typical house for 40 people. Sometimes plaster from the ceiling falls on them when they sleep. It's much too cold here. There are no windows. They close up the openings with sheet metal.
The migrant workers have to buy all basic amenities from the criminal gangmasters called the caporali. Often they come from the same countries as the foreign workers. For a rotten mattress, they'll demand €10.
In that yellow house over there are Italians. Not foreigners, Italians. They do business with the caporali. It's the only house around here with running water and electricity. The people have to go over there to charge their mobile phones. Because there's no electricity here, they'll take 50 cents for charging a phone, and to wash yourself over there it costs €1 or €1.50. It makes me want to cry. I feel disgust and hatred when I see human beings living under these conditions today in the 21st century in Italy. It's despicable, despicable. And the whole world knows about it. Everyone knows about it. But they don't care because these are migrants. The migrants are treated like animals. They are supposed to work to boost the business of the farmers and politicians. But no one sees them as people. That's Italy. Welcome to Italy.
Okay, so he says, that's Italy. Welcome to Italy. Oh, you can imagine that being said about, that's America. Welcome to America. In fact, Childish Gambino did a song with that lyric, I think. But you can imagine that being said, this is France. Welcome to France. This is Australia. Welcome to Australia. This is Indonesia. Welcome to Indonesia. By black people saying that. This is the Philippines. Welcome to the Philippines. This is China. Welcome to China. Yeah. The French government, a lot of people in France, they agree with them. That's slavery. I don't see how anybody can say that's not slavery. Now, if we were to transport that to the United States of America, the same conditions, if that was happening in 2019, or certainly if that was happening in 1930, 1940, would we say that's slavery? What sharecropping? See, he talked about, how basic amenities have to be paid for by these impoverished, these don't have any money workers. They have to pay even to take a shower. And later on in the video, he talks about how by the time they pay for their soap and their water and the taking the showers and the little bit of food they have, they are in debt, or they have like no money to get away, right? Doesn't that sound like sharecropping? Sharecropping or convict leasing, that's slavery, right? It's just a different version of it, but it's slavery. Now, for fair use, I want to show where I got this from. I used a snip from this particular video right here, Slavery in Italy, and the channel is DW Documentary. Okay, so that's where that little 4.5-minute clip came from. Okay, now, we saw what it looks like right now in 2019 in Italy. But before I talk about that, I do want to say, I want to say this now before I forget it. There's another part of the video that talked about how, even though the part you heard said that most of the laborers were Eastern Europeans and Africans, like 90-something% are Africans. Okay, and they have the HNICs, or the assistant to the slave master, the overseer, who were black people. That's the same thing that's happening in Italy right now. But, the question is, where they left, the part of Africa they left, were those conditions any better than what they're experiencing, or much better at all? If any better than the conditions they're experiencing? I'm talking about the conditions now, not the treatment by being slapped or what have you. But were those conditions worse? The same? Better? This idea that you can globetrot and go to some other part of the planet and get away from anti-blackness is rooted in just a total misunderstanding that the system is global. You know, we heard about Josephine Baker and Richard Wright and James Baldwin and some of those jazz artists or what have you. Even Jimi Hendrix saying that, you know, yeah, they went to Europe and they didn't experience racism like they did in the United States. It's because they were well known. But now there's nowhere you can go. See, and the primary consequence of anti-Blackness is not having technology. Because there's a common wheel of knowledge that has been shared and developed over thousands of years. Not one person is responsible for it. We own it communally. And when we come up with, when people come up with an innovation based upon the the former common base of technological knowledge, because it sits upon the foundation, so much of the foundation of thousands of years and hundreds of thousands of people who've contributed to it, they don't own that individually. And they do share. Korea and Japan were, and even China, they were peasant nations. Peasant nations with no technology. Japan had some technology because they sunk that Russian ship. But at the time of World War II, they didn't have much. And they were given patents to make VCRs and whatnot. They were given patents under the Marshall Plan. They were allowed to come study technology. And the people who gave it to them knew that they would eventually develop nukes. Come on. They're not stupid. In the Arab world, technology is shared. All over the world, technology is shared. The only people who do not share in it, and it's been deliberate because we know that they like to share with each other. You can just tell that, like I said, by the do-it-yourself videos on YouTube. But we've been deliberately left off of the common wheel of the development of technology. They've deliberately, non-Black people have deliberately left us off. Okay? And that's the primary consequence of the system of anti-Blackness on Black people. So you don't have technology, you're just running from place to place from desperate conditions with low sanitation and and no conditions to really thrive. And they're not going to share that with you just because you run to Europe. And unfortunately, not even ironically, if you get to the end of this particular video, he's getting all kinds of awards, but he's married to a white woman. Right? Yet the technology, if we ever get them to share it, it will be because we have innovated something that is some leverage against their current technology. That is very inexpensive to make, that is very portable, that could be in the hands of any Black person anywhere. It takes a great idea and an understanding of the physical world. Whenever we innovate that idea and we have some technology that can allow us to defend ourselves in our efforts, we're not trying to hurt anybody offensively, then we will have some leverage to say, we would like to do this and this and such. And you can keep your euros, you can keep your dollars. What we want at the end of this negotiation session is to be able to run this industry and to make this product, these many products in this much a period of time. And it might be a whole array of them. And if you haven't taught us to be able to do that with you not saying a word to us, if you haven't taught us that, then we haven't gotten the exchange that we want. Or at the very least, have the leverage from our innovation that will allow us some space so that people stay away from us, and we can observe what they've done. We can do reading. We can try to reverse engineer and make from scratch what we need. But running from place to place, trying to use the technology that they're trying to keep to themselves, using the infrastructure that they've built from themselves rather than building our own infrastructure where we are, wherever we are. Because see, there are people in the United States, there are individual Black people who know a lot about technology, but they only know a part of the assembly line. They don't know the whole process. They may know about what they know about in their own little sphere of influence, but there's no big picture where we're able to put it all together, and they know that. This goes hand in hand with the laws in Massachusetts in the 1600s that said that black people could not, more than two black people could not stand and talk, or all the laws that in the South that forbade black people to learn how to read. Reading is a technology. Reading and writing is a technology, right? Goes right along with that. We're not allowed to know what we know. They'll never let us get together and do that. Not knowingly. And so, of course, they're restricting how we come together, how we come to know about each other on YouTube or any place else. They've got control of it. The last live stream I did on Sunday was just like the previous two. So by the end of the live stream, it said that I had 14 likes and 1 dislike. But if you look right now, it says I have 4 likes. As they mess with comments, they mess with views, they mess with they mess with who gets to see what in the feed. But they're watching us. They're not offing me at this point. Not yet, because they don't think I've become, who knows how many people have actually heard what I've done here and on other platforms. I'm surprised. I will hear from people every so often from various corners of the world who know my work, and by the numbers they shouldn't. So I don't know. All I know is they're doing enough to where I know that I'm making a difference, and so I'm going to just keep chopping away regardless of what the statistics say. Okay, now, we've seen what slavery looks like in Italy. Did it look any different in 1930s, 1940s United States? Is this slavery right here? Okay. I want to turn off my mic. Hang on.
At the Okeechobee labor camp, while families were preparing to move north, there was still some work in the bean fields. Children, as usual, were left to fend for themselves.
Jerome, how old are you?
9.
9? Do you go to school?
Yes.
Where do you go to school, Jerome?
I did at Outrage Elementary School.
I see. What is your sister's name?
Lois,
That's Lois. And what are your other sisters' names?
Catherine, and Beulah.
Catherine and Beulah. What happened to your foot, Jerome?
Dig a nail in out there by the wash house.
So you drove a nail in out by the wash house. What did your mother do for that?
She put some alcohol on it
Where do you sleep, Jerome?
in his bed.
You have this big bed?
Yes.
What happened? How did you get that hole in that bed there, Jerome?
The rats.
The what?
Rats.
Now, Jerome, you are taking care of Kathy, of Beulah, and Lois.
Yes.
Now, are you going to give them lunch today?
Yes.
What are you going to feed them?
I don't know.
Do you have any food here to give them?
Yes.
I see. What time does your mother come home?
I don't know.
The following day, Arlene King, the mother of Jerome, Kathy, Lois, and Beulah, again was picking beans.
Aileen King, I saw your children yesterday at the Okeechobee camp. Why didn't you put them in the nursery?
I don't make enough to pay for it.
How much does it cost to put them in?
85 cents.
85 cents.
That's right.
Aileen, what time did you come out the field this morning?
6 o'clock.
What time will you get home?
About 3:30, 4 o'clock.
6 this morning to 4 o'clock this afternoon.
That's right.
How much did you earn?
$1.
$1?
That's right. $1.
Is that because the beans were of poor quality?
That's right.
Has this happened before?
That's right.
How much will your food cost you today?
About $2.
Aileen, how old are you?
29.
How many children do you have?
14.
How old were you when you first started working in the fields?
8.
You've been working 21 years in the fields?
That's right.
Aileen, do you ever think you'll be able to get out of this kind of work?
No, sir.
The Civil War was a labor dispute that was inevitably tied to American Indian land.
Okay, so was that slavery? She makes $1 a day, but it costs her $2 to eat, and we're not even talking about personal amenities. Is that similar to what happened in Italy? Is happening in Italy right now? Is that slavery? That's sharecropping, right? That's sharecropping. And I don't see how it's different than what's happening in Italy. Now, I didn't want to go where Dane Calloway was going with it, but I will say that the woman had, how many kids did she have? 14 kids, and she was only 29. Yeah, she had a lot of kids. And those are terrible conditions that I would consider slavery. But those are conditions in which you could procreate. You don't have the terrorism of the guy on the horseback with the whip and the gun. You don't have people being strung up near you where you can hear them groaning, and that might be you at any given time. You don't have pregnant women's bellies being ripped open. You don't hear the dogs barking, chasing people. You don't have feet being cut off. You are working sun up to Sunday. Now, under chattel slavery, they were working more hours than 6 to 3. But of course, she's got to go home by herself and take care of those kids. There's no man in the house, from what I could see. But 6 to 3. Now, under those conditions where it's supposed to be employment, I could see procreating as she did. But under conditions where you're not sure whether, you're terrorized all day long and you're working 16, 18, 20-hour days, how in the world do you procreate? Under severe stress and terrorism like that, men's testosterone levels drop, which means that their sperm count drops. And women's, under that kind of stress, their progesterone levels drop, so they're less fertile. On top of that, at the end of such long days and so on, you gotta get an erection. So even if you had bucks that were designated to be, the impregnators of unwilling women, which would mean that he would have to rape them. And I don't know, not that many men have problems with raping, I guess. But you still have to deal with the women's. You'd have to know their cycle, because the man, whoever he was chosen, those bucks couldn't just go through serially raping every single post-pubescent, premenopausal woman every single day. You'd have to know the 3 days that she was fertile. And still, I just don't see how it could happen under those conditions. I think slavery was probably much more of the condition that we saw in the second video. And maybe even the first one in Italy. That was mostly, and it was sort of an ancillary point that Dane Calloway was making. And I want to make sure, this is the exact same video that I was showing twice on the last YouTube premiere I did. So this is Dane Calloway, March 11, 2019. This is the name of it. Go check him out if you want to see his take on where he's going with it, which is different than where I'm going with it. Okay. And so my question is, if you go back to, where's the picture of it? Yeah, when you go back to those conditions, whether or not you were a shoe shine man, or you were carrying, or you were hauling very heavy buckets of ice in 1920, 1930, or all those menial tasks that black people have always had and still have. To this day, black people are the ones who are cleaning the toilets in hospitals, cleaning the bedpans, and so on, cleaning the toilets in schools, pushing drooling, developmentally disabled people on street corners. These are the jobs that we have. Or working horrible shifts at drugstores, or supermarkets, even, you know, libraries, what have you. Have you ever noticed that whenever you're in any of those places and the big division manager comes in for some sort of check of the place, everybody's getting ship shape, they're always non-black people. They're always in charge of us. We're barely making it, and they're always in charge of us. And we just go home and garage ourselves and come right back out again. The differential in power and the coercion of being homeless and so on, that's slavery. Definitely worse on what I saw in Italy. And that was definitely worse. And the conditions, you know, the conditions that woman was going through, very similar to what they were going through out there on those farms. And her children, geez. And, you know, if you looked at those little children, the babies, you could see that they attuned to their names. But if you were in that kind of condition where you just sat all day in the sun, you couldn't do anything, you weren't exposed to anything, what do you think that does to the cognitive development of a child? What do you think that does genetically to their offspring, to the cognitive development? Okay. So yeah, when we're talking about major policy issues, we need people who can do something, who mean us well. I mean, if we're going to depend upon them, if we actually think we're going to get something out of them, but to the degree that we are, we need people who mean us well and who can do something. Okay. So I'm just going to let this ride right here. This is Kofi's breakdown of the dangers that Kamala Harris poses, and then he's going to break down why she is not a black person. And then when he's through, and this is, I thought the political analysis was on point, so it precedes the rating of him, you know, him rating her on my tool, the Cree tool, as to whether or not she's black, the political analysis. But then after that, I'll rate Chris Brown. Well, before I rate Chris Brown, I will talk about the 4 candidates that, just real briefly, that I have not ruled out as somebody I might punch the card for. And then I'll rate Chris Brown and put into context whether he said what he said as a black man or a non-black man. Okay? So let's let Kofi talk about Kamala Harris, the danger she poses as an imposter of a black person, and then him showing that she is in fact not black. Here we go. Turn off my mic first.
And the underlying cause.
We gotta go back a little bit. So the dude said fire the police officer. P had nothing to say. Mayor P had nothing to say. So let's listen to what Miss Marianne gotta say now. So I gotta get back to that point. Alright. Fire the police chief.
All of these issues are extremely important, but they are specific. They are symptoms.
Yo, Mayor Pete had nothing to say. He's so happy that Marianne cut in. They should have stayed quiet. They should have stayed quiet and let him just sit there looking like a damn fool. Let me not say any kind of curses, because you know YouTube. Fire the chief. Feel me? And then Marianne's gonna go in and talk about the root cause of these police killings.
And the underlying cause has to do with deep realms of racial injustice, both in our criminal justice system and in our economic system. And the Democratic Party should be on the side of reparations for slavery for this very reason. I do not believe... They
clapped a little bit, but not really. Just keep that in mind, because when they talk about them immigrants, everybody's clapping. We need to have reparations. Oh yay, little clap.
I believe that the average American is a racist, but the average American is woefully undereducated about the history of race in the United States.
Okay, I interrupted, but I really want us to see what happens here. This is the most important part of the whole debate session, both 1 and 2. So let's go back a few seconds, and I'm gonna be quiet.
I do not believe that the average American is a racist, but the average American is woefully undereducated about the history of race in the United States.
Ms. Williamson, thank you very much. Vice President Biden, we're going to get to you. Hang on, we're going to get.
She wasn't done talking, but Biden and Kamala are trying to break in.
I would like to speak on the issue of race.
What did she say? Let's go back. Kamala Harris.
Biden, we're going to get to you. Hang on, we're going to get to
stage. I would like to speak on the issue of.
As the only black person on this stage, Kamala Harris, is she's the only black person on this stage? No. No. I wish them white folks would have stopped her there. Miss, you're not a black person, so no, you can't talk. But they scared. Because I don't know what they scared. Maybe because she's not a black person and she has that non-black power that she could get them in trouble. As the only black person on the stage, I would like to talk about the issues of race. We're not talking about the issues of race. We're talking about the issues of reparations, not the issues of race. But let's go on. Let's see what she's gonna say about reparations, about Kamala Harris, about Marianne's reparations.
I would like to speak on the issue of race.
Also, how loud did they clap for, as the only black person on stage, I would like to talk about race? Mad loud. For reparations, mad quiet.
Senator Harris, and so what I will say is, if I could preface this, we will give you 30 seconds, and we're going to come back to you on this again in just a moment. Go for 30 seconds.
Okay. So, on the issue of race, I couldn't agree more that this is an issue that is still not being talked about truthfully and honestly. There is not a black man I know, be he a relative, a friend, or a coworker, who has not been the subject of some form.
I don't know what black people she has as relatives. She was raised by her South Indian mama and her non-black Jamaican daddy. Her daddy is Jamaican, but you know how they got people in Jamaica who aren't black. That's who her dad is. Now, she said her relatives, her black male relatives, she doesn't have any. So what is she talking about?
Profiling or discrimination. Growing up, my sister and I had to deal with the neighbor who told us her parents couldn't play with us because we were black. And I will say also that in this camp...
Now, she, on the one hand, her neighbor said that her children couldn't play with Kamala and her sister because Kamala and her sister was black. But later on, she's going to talk about how she lived in a black neighborhood and she had to get bused to a white school. So I don't understand how that works.
We've also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden, I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day.
So, okay, go on, Kamala.
And that little girl was me. So I will tell you that on this subject, it cannot be an intellectual debate among Democrats. We have to take it seriously. We have to act swiftly. As Attorney General of California, I was very proud to put in place a requirement that all my special agents would wear body cameras and keep those cameras on.
Okay, we're gonna stop it for a minute. So she had to get bused from her black neighborhood to a white neighborhood to go to a white school. But at the same time, her neighbor was a white person who didn't want her children to play with Kamala and her sister because Kamala and her sister was black. Why was there a white person living in a black neighborhood but didn't want their children to play with black people? I don't understand that. I don't understand how that can work. You know what I mean? I don't understand that at all. She just be making stuff up. Next, she said she became a prosecutor. What's that mean? A prosecutor is the person who tries to lock you up. She's the one where you get arrested and they're trying to build a case against you and lock you up. Okay? So let's keep that in mind as she continues to talk. She was a prosecutor. She wasn't a civil rights attorney. She wasn't a civil rights attorney. She was a prosecutor. She wasn't a, legal aid or any of them things that help folks. She said, I'm going to go to law school, then I'm going to go to the system, and I'm going to lock N-words up. Who displaced this white person? Somebody else in her brain, in her mental neighborhood. Because that don't make no sense. But let's go on, Kamala. What else you got to say?
Senator Harris, thank you. Vice President Biden, you have been invoked. We are going to give you a chance to respond.
Listen, Marianne is over there trying to bring it back to reparations. Remember, we're not talking about you, Kamala. We're not talking about you getting bust. We're not talking about blah, 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 blah. We talking about reparations. And you're the only black person on stage that could talk about race. Why did you stop talking about reparations and start talking about yourself? But okay, listen, and Marianne's there trying to bring it back. Let's go. I'm gonna be quiet. Listen to Marianne in the back trying to break back in.
Vice President Biden, you have been invoked. We are going to give you a chance to respond. Vice President Biden.
Now, Marianne came on Twitter the next day and she kept saying that her mic was shut off. They keep doing that. They don't want they kept shutting her mic off so she couldn't talk. So Biden's now gonna reply to Kamala because if we were in the last news cycles, Biden did a couple things. A, he said that he worked with some segregationists back because he'd been in politics since the 60s or 70s. He worked with some people who wanted segregation and who he says were good people, blah, blah, blah. I worked with them across the aisle and I like them. And Kamala's calling him on that and calling him on because he said that he doesn't like the government forcing busing. So now he's going to reply.
You mischaracterized my position across the board. I did not praise racists. That is not true. Number one. Number two, if we want to have this campaign litigated on who supports civil rights and whether I did or not, I'm happy to do that. I was a public defender. I didn't become a prosecutor.
Okay, so this part was glossed over too. He said he was a public defender. That's the dude who, when you get locked up, if you can't afford a lawyer, then you get the free lawyer that comes in. He went to law school and chose to be a public defender. That's what's up. If you want to help people, that's what you do. He's saying, excuse me, you talking all this stuff to me, but you was a damn cop, Kamala. You was the Pope, locking ends up, whereas I was a public defender, saving them from people like you.
I came out. I left a good law firm to become a public defender. When in fact my city was in flames because of the assassination of Dr. King.
Remember, after Dr. King was assassinated, black folks was burning down cities. That's back when Hassim, That's what it is. She built her sim neighborhood on her computer. Yeah, that was me and my sister. And the white, yeah. She got that going right on in her brain. Yeah. So Biden was a lawyer when black folks was burning down cities in the 60s and 70s. He was a public defender defending, I guess he's saying he was defending those black people, but who knows? Whereas Kamala left law school and became a prosecutor, and then became the top prosecutor of California, locking up black folks, making policies such as the policy to what did she say? If your children was truant, didn't go to school, she started locking up the parents. What part of the game is that? What part of the game is that you lock up the parents for your children being truant? How does that help anybody? But that was one of her main policies.
Number one. Now, number two, as the Vice President of the United States, I work with a man who, in fact, we work very hard to see to deal with these issues in a major, major way. The fact is that in terms of busing, you would have been able to go to school the same exact way because it was a local decision made by your city council. That's fine. That's one of the things I argued for, that we should be breaking down these lines. But so the bottom line here is, look, everything I've done in my career, I ran because of civil rights. I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights. And those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
Of course.
Vice President Biden.
So blah, 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 blah. Plus I help the LGBT, which ain't nobody talking about. So he really hit her. He hit her hard. He said you was the police and I was a public defender. He really hit her, but the media didn't pick that up. What's she gonna reply?
Do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America?
No.
Do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well,
I
there
did
was
not
a
oppose
failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley.
No. First of all, in '68, I'm sure that them white folks in Berkeley, California, would be happy to have some little Indian child in their school. Berkeley? No. Kamala Harris is a liar, and she's dangerous too. She's probably the most dangerous candidate up there in reference to black people, because what she's trying to do is she's trying to get the presidency as a black woman. She's trying to be the first black woman president, because she's trying to say, oh, I'm a black woman. I went through all of the trials and tribulations of black people in America. My ancestors went through these tribulations, and America, you owe us this presidency. And there's going to be a lot of guilt votes because of that. What she's doing is she's hijacking black people's history and black people's inheritance of this horrible country. There's a lot of things that black people have inherited, this mistreatment in this country, and she's hijacking that. Oh, woe is me, and if you vote for me, then that will show that America is a new place, and we're past race. Blah blah blah. It's dangerous. Kamala Harris is very dangerous. She's very dangerous. Another reason she's dangerous is because she's been asked multiple times, what are your policies in relation to black people? And she's answered every single time, I do not have policies for black people specifically. I got policies for poor people. I got policies for LGBT. I got policies for the undocumented people in the cages. So what that means is if she wins, she's gonna ignore us and probably lock us up like she was doing in Cali as the Cali DA. Okay, so she's dangerous, yo.
California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision.
So that's where the federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments in history would state
I almost feel bad for Biden.
deserve the civil rights of all people.
But he's a criminal against the black race too. They both are. They're both two devils, male devil, female devil. You know, he passed laws during the Clinton administration that he voted for laws during the Clinton administration that made the disparities in crack versus cocaine. Whereas if you're caught with crack, X amount of crack, you get mad years. Whereas if you're caught with the same amount in weight of cocaine, you might get a slap on the wrist. He called us super predators. He was saying that these black youths need to be, handled. Even though we caused them to be criminals, we still need to put them in prison. So this whole mass incarceration right now, he was a big part of that. Okay? I don't even know why President Obama made him the vice president, but he did. He made this criminal against black people vice president. And now these two seem like they're the front runners, two devils against black folks. A devil and a succubus.
The ERA from the very beginning when I ran for the
30 seconds, but I want to bring other people into this.
I supported the ERA from the very beginning. I'm the guy that extended the Voting Rights Act for 25 years. We got to the place where we got 98 out of 98 votes in the United States Senate doing it. I've also argued very strongly that we in fact deal with the notion of denying people access to the ballot box. I agree that everybody, once they in fact, they should, anyway, my time's up, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
He ain't have nothing to say.
Senator Sanders.
He ain't have nothing to say, and so he just let his time run up because he was done. Marianne Williamson, she commented about reparations, and that whole 4 or 5 minute block was in order to stop talking about reparations. This was the only time in these two debates that reparations was talked about, and this is a major issue. If you go on Twitter, everybody, all of the black folks is talking about reparations, and every time a black person interviews these presidents, these candidates, they ask them about reparations, but they're not discussing it at all. All they're discussing is LGBT, Medicare for the immigrants, and getting the immigrants out of cages. This got out of hand, and now everybody's forgotten about it. And many times throughout that exchange, Marianne was in the background trying to break in, but she wasn't allowed to. So Kamala broke in with, as the only black person on stage, I want to talk about race, and then she got the whole round of applause. First, she's not a black person. Second, she had the whole hour. It's an hour and 2 minutes right now. She had that whole hour and 2 minutes to bring up the topic of race, and she didn't. She only chose to speak on it when Marianne brought up the topic of reparations. And then she went on to turn it on to herself. Oh, about woe is me. I was a little black girl. Blah, blah, blah. I was a black girl trying to get bussed in. So, she's dangerous. Anytime black people are gonna be discussed, Kamala's gonna be there to disrupt it. She has her Indian mama, her Indian name. Kamala is Hindi or Tamil for lotus. That's another thing. Folks call her Kamala in order to kind of blackify her name. Her name is not Kamala, it's Kamala. They're always trying to put that black twist on her name. Kamala. And, her mama didn't want her in the black schools. Her mama wanted her in the white schools. Okay. Good. Let's keep it going. Yeah, and you're gonna hear Miss Marianne Williamson progressively trying to get in, but she never really talks again. That was probably the most important point. So that's it there. We're gonna end the Democratic debates there. All right. So let's close this. Open image gallery back. Yep. So that was the Democratic debates. That's all I found interesting there. I mean, they talked about whatever else they want to talk about, So now we're gonna discuss some of the candidates, right? Let's look at Kamala Harris. Is she a black person? Y'all know how I feel already. But let's maybe she is, right? Maybe she is. This is Kamala Harris. The teams of Harris and Biden likely collabed in advance of the debate with that filibuster. That was a very good filibuster. I'm sure they did that. Oh. Yeah, I'm sure they did that. I almost forgot. Right after that exchange, Kamala Harris and her team released a T-shirt of Harris as a little girl. A T-shirt called "I Was That Little Girl." Right after, it wasn't even after the debate, it was right after that exchange, she released that shirt, and they started selling it on her website. "I'm that little girl, young Kamala Harris." Okay, that little girl was me. That little girl was me. Graphic campaign imprint. Blah 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 blah. So this was all a ploy. Like, they was ready for it. They was waiting for the opportunity to do this, to hit Biden, because Biden's the front runner, and to drop this shirt. I'm sure they collabed. I'm sure of it. And I'm also sure that MSNBC collabed too, because they kept shutting off Marianne Williamson's mic. Okay, so Kamala Harris, is this a black person or a non-black person? Let's look at her skin. Her skin is similar to this dude, her husband, whatever his name is. Okay. Her eyes are kind of light. I would give her eyes a 2 out of 3. Her skin, it's also pretty light, right? So yeah, I kind of transitioned a little fast. So let me pull back a little bit. I got a little excited. We start in the second hour of the CRAB program. CRAB is an acronym, Countering Racism, Anti-Blackness. I'm here trying to counter the anti-blackness that was going on in that Democratic debate, because there was plenty of it. And if we don't counter it, nobody will, and we're just gonna be getting messed up, for the rest of history, for the rest of the future. We're gonna keep getting. We gotta counter this anti-blackness. Kamala Harris is one of the prime anti-black people that's playing here with this presidency right now. Cause she not only does she practice anti-blackness, she practices trickery in pretending to be a black person. So when she does things, it's people could be like, "Hey, she's a black person doing it. Hey, that's on y'all." That's some real trickery she doing. Okay, so Kamala Harris, her hair looks like she has a perm. She looks like a person with a really good perm and that nappy hair. Her nose bridge, she looks like she has very little of a nose bridge. So we're gonna start the rating. I got 3 people to rate, and then we're gonna call it a day. And if we all remember, when we're rating people, what do we look at? It's been a little while, so let's do a little reiteration on the Cree tool ratings. Right? Let's close the image of Kamala. And let's look at the PDF. How we looking? Oh, there we go. Alright. So when we're rating people to see if they're black or non-black, what do we look at? We look at their features. We look at their hair. We look at their skin color. We look at their eyes, their lips, their nose bridge, right? The bridge of the nose, that's this right here. How much of a curve there is. That's what we look at. And we remember that the hair coil, how nappy their hair is, how dark their skin is, their nose bridge, their nose width, how far their nostril is from eye to eye, the darkness of their eyes, how dark their eyes are. They got them light blue eyes, and their lip thickness, how thick their lips are, right? And that's how we do it. We rate them on a scale of 0 to 3. 3 being basically that's a black feature. 0 being that's a non-black feature. So that's how we're gonna look at Kamala Harris right now. A lot of times the nose bridges give a little issue. So I just want to show a quick picture of a nose bridge, of a good nose bridge, if I could find it real quick, of our favorite lady with a nose bridge. Can't find that picture. Alright, so we're gonna look at the next one then. Alright, let's look at Rihanna's nose bridge. She has a perfect black nose bridge. Rihanna. I wanted to use Lupita, but Rihanna will have to do. We're going to look at Rihanna's nose bridge. You see how it's curved like a C or like a U? This would get a score of 3 on nose bridges, right? Yeah, you already know I was looking for Lupita, but I couldn't find it quick enough because I wasn't prepared to go back over what it is. But this is the perfect nose bridge. This is what a black nose bridge looks like. Okay? Black people's nose bridge are curved, nice, like a nice circle, like a nice mathematic circle. Whereas non-black people, their nose bridge looks like hawks. Right? Their nose bridge look crazy. Do I got any pictures of people with messed up nose bridges? How's Joe Budden's? Yeah, Joe Budden's is kind of straight. See, there's no curve going on here. He has a curve up here at the eye level, but then it goes straight out. Okay? Let's see. Alright, so we're gonna go back to Kamala. We're gonna go back to Kamala. Let's look at Kamala and her nonsense. She's such a black person, but she don't got black features. And if you don't have black features, then you're not living the same life as a black person. Okay? You don't go to a bank and they say, nah, this N-word ain't getting no loan because you not an N-word. They say, oh, okay, yeah, come get it. The police don't say, nah, come beat this N-word because you not that. The teachers don't call you stupid, don't call you names. The children don't call you ugly for being too black. So you're not living the life of a black person. And if you're not living the life of a black person, you shouldn't be calling yourself a black person. Because the only thing that makes a black person is how they look. Because how they look determines how they're treated by everybody else around them. Okay? Now if you're like Kamala, looking like a straight Indian, you know, with the hawk nose going on, you're not living that life. Get out of here, Kamala. Okay, so we're gonna do the rating. Her hair is not coiled at all. She don't have hair like me. She don't have hair like black people. She got straight Indian hair. It got a little bit of a curl to it. You know, there's some pictures where where it do look a little curly. So on a scale of 1 to 3, I have seen her look like a 2. So we're gonna score her hair as a 2. In terms of the skin color, she's real light. She's close to her white husband. Look, you know, they're close. Okay, so her skin gets a 1 on the scale of 1 to 3. Her nose bridge, she got that Harvey Birdman. She got that Harvey Bird nose bridge, straight down. It's like a slash instead of the C that we saw in Rihanna. She gets no points for this. Okay. Next, we're gonna look at her nose width. How far her nose goes from eye to eye. Okay. How wide her nose is. It's not wide at all. It's thin. Right. When she was young, it looked a little wider. But when you're young, all your features are exaggerated. You got a big head, big eyes. Most people have that curved nose bridge when they're very young. Even a lot of white folks and a lot of non-black folks have it. But once they grow up, they lose it. Okay. So with the nose width, here's a good one. You know, it doesn't even reach the tear ducts. Okay. So she gets a 1. Her eye darkness, her eyes are kind of light, but, you know, they're not super light. I think her eyes score a 2 out of 3. Especially when I was looking at her in the debate, it looked like a 2 out of 3. And finally, her lip thickness. Her lips are, you know, she has some fat in her lips. Is it collagen? So that's Kamala. We're going to look at the score. In terms of Kamala Harris, her hair coil, 35. So what we do is, whichever level you get, level 0 being a non-black and level 3 being a black person, you multiply that by how much points there is for each level. Now, hair is most important when determining if a person is black or not, because only black people have nappy hair, whereas mad people have dark eyes on the earth. There are other people who have dark eyes but no other black feature. There are some who have a wide nose, but no other black feature. Skin darkness. So there's some people in India who have black skin, but they got the hawk nose, straight hair, light eyes, right? So hair is the most important. Next comes the skin darkness, and then nose bridge, nose width, eye darkness, and lip thickness are all of equal importance. Okay? So 35 points. 35 times 2, she got 70 points for her hair coil. Skin darkness is 20, so you add 20 to that 70. We're at 90. No points for the nose bridge. 10 points for the nose width. So what are we at? 100. Oh, I put the full points for the eye darkness, so we're at 130. And finally, lip thickness 20, so we're at 150. In order to be a black person, you have to score 68% of the maximum. The maximum you could score is 285. So black people who are black, with the nappy hair, wide nose, big lips, dark eyes, dark skin, curvature of your nose, those people will have 285. Kamala scored 150. That's significantly below the black person's. You got to be 195 or higher. Which means there are black people who have some have straighter hair, some have lighter skin, some have thinner lips. But what happens is, because all of your other features add up to looking like a black person, you live that black life still. And, you know, your score will be 195 or higher. She got 150. What's that? 35 times 2 is 70, plus 20, 90. Plus 10, 100, plus 30, 130, plus 20, 150. Not a black person. Kamala, you're not black. Stop lying. And we got a caller on it. Okay? Let's look at Cory Booker now.
Okay, so we finished with Kamala. I'm going to call her Kamala now because you understand why. We finished with Kamala Harris. She's not a black person. Okay, we explained why it's important that she not be allowed to. Yeah, I mean, it's just important that no one is allowed to impersonate being a black person, but particularly if they can affect public policy for black people, not only in this country, but I mean, as the president of the United States, you can affect public policy that can affect black people worldwide. Okay, so that takes care of her. Now, I said at the end of this that I would rate Chris Brown, but I also said that I would talk about real briefly the 3 people that I haven't ruled out. I haven't ruled out this guy Beto O'Rourke, who's running for the Dems. And I haven't ruled him out. None of them are great, but I haven't ruled him out because he's having this little 4-minute interview and he's asked about reparations, cash payments. And he said he would support a highlight. This is that, I should show you a picture of Beto O'Rourke. Let's see, can you see him? So this is him. Okay. I don't know what he is. Sounds like maybe he's Cuban. O'Rourke, Beto O'Rourke. Kind of, let me see what kind of Hispanic he is. Beto O'Rourke. Is he from San Diego? For real? Let's see what Wiki says about Beto O'Rourke. Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke. Okay, so Texas is where he's doing his deal. He's trying to run for president. Let's look at his early life, childhood and teenage years. Let's see. He was born in Texas. So he's probably of Mexican. He is 4th generation Irish American, so that's where O'Rourke comes from. He was born to Pat Francis O'Rourke. And Melissa Martha O'Rourke. But where's that Beto? Beto is like a little Spanish name. He has 2 younger sisters. The younger one born intellectually impaired. In his infancy, his family gave him the nickname Beto, a common Spanish nickname for names ending in Berto. Initially to distinguish him from his namesake grandfather. Okay, but so he's not Hispanic at all. Why'd they give him that name? He's not Hispanic, but he was up there speaking Spanish when it had nothing to do with anything. You know, pandering to the Hispanic immigrants. Okay, well. All right, so that's what he looks like. We know who he is. All right, and so the reason that I haven't completely ruled him out. Oops. Where is it? Beto O'Rourke. Okay, the reason I haven't completely ruled him out is, let's see if I can fix this problem with my mic here, is because he says he's for repair. I've not heard a public figure talk about repair instead of the word reparations. So he's thinking. He knows that we need to repair. He says, I would support those steps that would allow us to repair the damage done to the damage. I would support those steps that would allow us to repair the damage done and to stop visiting that kind of injustice on future generations. That's a good soundbite. I want to repair the damage that's done, and I want to stop what's going on right now. So he's acknowledging that severe racism and is happening right now, and he wants to stop that. At least that's what he says. And he wants to repair the damage that was done to us before we were even born. Right? So that's cool. And then he goes on to say, but I am convinced in a democracy, unless everybody understands the story of this country, and most people do not, you'll never get to that action or the end result. Well, of course, that's ridiculous, and I'm not going to go into details about that, but everybody who comes here knows to put themselves, knows that the only thing that's important is not to be black, and they know that black people were slaves. Come on. And no matter how you define slaves, so they know. So I'm not down with that. But he did, he talked about repair, and he talked about stopping the racism right now. And is there anything else that has allowed me not to rule him out yet? He keeps saying that people don't know the story. And, yeah. He's talking about the lynching by cops, enforcement officials. And, he's talking about how he would address the gender gap for black women, his views of whether incarcerated people should have the right to vote, maternal mortality rates among black women. So he's talking about, things that are specific to black women. HBCU funding, debt-free college, and other silly things. Okay, so I haven't ruled him out. You know, he's not great because he's sitting there talking about people don't know what it means to be black, or they don't know about the history of this country. Okay, I mean, you know, I can't become a fangirl of that, but I haven't ruled him out. The other person that I haven't ruled out is de Blasio, because de Blasio, the guy is married to the black woman. That's not because he's married to her, but because de Blasio took a huge stand against the NYPD. Yeah, he took a huge stand, and the NYPD, you know, politicians have kowtowed to the NYPD or police departments all over the country, but certainly in New York for, God, almost 100 years. And he came out against, you know, all the profiling and all of the unnecessary shootings. And he made that statement, and the cops could turn their backs on him. Whenever he was at a public event, they were supposed to be there to protect him, and they turned their backs to him every place he went. So he's a little chutzpah. He's a white man. Let's see how far he can get. I haven't ruled him out. I don't know what his position is on reparations. The third person I haven't completely ruled out is Marianne Williamson, just because she was going to raise the issue of reparations. She already has, and she, you know, on her own sort of video, and she raised it in the debates, and she did say that they were turning off her mic. Now, these are based on history. These are probably people who are just talking, and nothing will ever get done about it. But right now, those are the 3 of the 22 that I have not ruled out. I've ruled out all the rest of them. Maybe one of them can come in the field. But at this point, for me, for other reasons, they're running even with Donald Trump. They're running even with Donald Trump. And not because Donald Trump has said he's going to do anything for black people, but I'll just stop it right there. Okay. Next. Chris Brown, we should... What is this here? What is this here? Okay, I don't need this. Nor do I need this. Go back to the studio, and we're going to rate Chris Brown. Chris Brown slideshow. Turn this off for right now. Okay, so let's just take a look. Here's Chris. What can we see here? Now, for Chris Brown, his nose bridge is going to be critical. It's the make or break. Okay? So we need to understand nose bridges here. And so I'll have a sketch for that. But here we can see his nose bridge because it's a profile. We see the end of his forehead. Then we see where his nose starts. Males generally have a pronounced brow ridge. It's part of primary sexual characteristics. And that's just not my observation. Although, you know, I think that's a pretty good observation. But no, if you look at the evidence from forensic specialists and anthropologists, the way they can tell male remains from female remains is that the forehead of females is more rounded generally than males. So there's a prominent, like, part of the forehead, the lower forehead, that juts out where the eyebrows are for males generally, or more so than women. Of all the women that I have seen, the women generally have a rounded forehead. Of all the women that I have seen, the women with the roundest foreheads, and we get made fun of it. Get made fun of because the ones with the roundest foreheads I have seen have been black women, particularly American women. So we have the more feminine forehead, and that makes the nose bridge curve easier to see because the roundness of the head folds into the reverse roundness of the nose bridge. But here what you could see is that his nose bridge starts at the bottom of his forehead because he has a prominent brow ridge on his forehead, and then it just goes straight out. But I'll show a sketch that differentiates the different kinds. Okay, let's go to the next picture of Chris. We can see his coloring, and you can see his hair, both of them. So this kind of hair right here, just, it's cut short, but you could see that it's, I don't know how to say it. It's not smooth. Yeah, it's not smooth. Right there, you would think his hair is probably a 2 at most. Might be a 3. Yeah. All right, and we see his coloring. I would give a 2. Next picture. I'm still giving his coloring a 2. I'm giving his lips a 3. His hair looks like maybe, I don't know if that's his natural hair, what's going on. It's a little bit longer. I don't know what that is. I could see that it's been, you know, I see a little ruffle there near the top, but I don't know what to call that. So, what would happen? Nah, never mind. Okay, so yeah, I'd give his skin a 2. Can't really see his nose that well because I can't see his eyes, and I'll give his lips a 3. And I'm leaning towards a 2-3 on his hair. Here is, he always keeps his hair really short. If his hair is not short, he's got it dyed. Even then it's kind of short. And if you dye something platinum blonde, it's gonna have a what do you call it? There's some heat to it that will cause the coil in the hair to widen out or lengthen. But I think it's very curious that he wears his hair this short, because if his hair is clearly curly and glossy, I think we would have seen more of it. But we can see that his eyes are dark. I would give his eyes a 3. I'm beginning to see some shadows here around his nose bridge, so I'm starting to think, you know, that his nose bridge is definitely not a 3, maybe anything from a 0 to a, I don't even see a 2. I'm thinking it might be a 0 or 1 just from this, but I mean, you can't tell straight on. It's interesting the way you can see his nostrils in this picture. It's kind of a lot of the angles that Chris takes pictures, they take them from almost beneath him, so you can see his nostrils, which is important because it gives you a sense of his nose that you wouldn't get if the camera was flush on. But I'm continuing to give his skin a 2 and his lips a 3. So again, I don't know about his hair. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's 2, 3, but I do know that his eyes are a 3. His bridge is probably a 0 or 1 from what I'm seeing right here. His nose width, it makes it to the corners. So I'm giving it a 2. And I'm giving his lips a full 3. His really nice plush lips. Okay. Here, you know, this is supposed to be him as a little boy on the left, and then, you know, the grown man to the right. And the hair looks similar from when he was a child, but it looks like he's under 6 on the picture, in the picture on the left. So you really can't tell from that. But I mean, it might be. It's just that I think that if he had that hair as an adult, because hair tightens a lot, you know, very often tightens as hybrid people get older. But that's his hair. If that were his hair, that would be 1 hair because of the gloss. You know, it's a 2 curl, but it's got glossiness to it in both cases. So I would give it a 1, but I'm not convinced that is his hair. It's not straight on, so you can't see the width of his nose. Here, his nose bridge is looking, it's not looking like a 3, but now I'm thinking it's anywhere between a 0 and a 2. His color remains a 2. You can't see his hair. His eyes are dark. 3. This is him with his mom, but remember, we don't go by parentage. We just go by the person themselves. I don't know. I've never seen his father. But this picture is for his nose bridge. Now that's looking like a 0 nose bridge to me. That's what that's looking like. Here you can his hair is dyed and therefore processed to a certain extent. can't really see anything else. There's nothing different than that I would rate him just based on this picture. Again, the camera's coming up through his nostrils. The hair, now here it's a certain decent length. I'm looking at how uneven typically uneven, I mean the what am I looking at? The edge of his hair above his forehead. Okay, that looks like 2-3 hair to me. Because it's like a rocky beach. With people with looser hair, that would be more of a straight line, hairline right above his forehead. But everything else, I would leave the same. I don't change his nose. His nose, when you look at his nostrils, the nostrils are so wide that it can tend to make you think his nose is wider than it is. So I'm still looking for a picture that's flush on. He definitely, if we were to take nostrils as a black nose trait, he has black nostrils. More black nostrils, I think. But, there are a lot, I don't know. I've not looked at nostrils enough to say how much of a black nose trait that is. So we'll stick with the 6 we've got. He's smiling there, his nose is wider. I'm looking at the nose bridge. I don't really see anything that changes it for me. Again, the camera's underneath him, but it doesn't change anything. You see that he straightened his hair a little bit, but he's got the cap on. I've never seen him just, hey, show all that curly hair if that's what you got. Since you like, quote unquote, nice hair, mister. This one's more straight on. Can't really see his nostrils. Now his hair is shorter, but at this length, this is not what I'm used to seeing with black men who wear their hair that short. Usually you see a more carpeted texture look, whereas this looks a little spiky even as short as it is. So I'm thinking his hair is at least, at most a 2. I like this picture the best because it's straight on, and he is quasi-smiling. I think I get a better sense of what the width of his nose is. So I would definitely give that nose a 2. And all the numbers remain the same for everything else. Now he's slightly turned. Nose bridge is looking like either a 0 or a 1. He's really turned there, and now I'm pretty clear that that's a 0 nose bridge. He has a Harvey Birdman nose bridge, as Kofi would say. Yeah, and that's going to be important because I'm going to show you how white people look at him, who are looking at the differences. Okay, so this is something that white people were doing. Remember, I had said at the beginning of the video that white people have been noticing the differences between their types and other types for a long time. And then they've been giving them words. And the words that they want to give, the ones of their type, are the most, they give it the best characterization. Right? They elevate their type. So they think that number 1 is the classic Greek. But really 1 through 5 are all ski slopes. Now remember that males, and these are all males, generally have a prominent brow ridge, so the nose starts at the bottom of the forehead. The nose bridge starts at the bottom of the forehead. So at the bottom of this forehead, you see a slope. Here's a prominent, on number 2, you'll see a prominent bridge. The bridge is shaped a little differently. The bridge curves before it ends. But basically you see it straight with a little bump on it. The Nordic nose bridge is very similar to number 1. You see the prominent brow ridge, And then the brow ridge curves a little bit, and then it still curves just a little tiny bit. That's supposed to be the Roman, the Nordic type. 1 and 2 is the classic Greek and the Roman. They're trying to make it fit their interpretation of history. Number 4 is Semitic. So basically we're talking about Eastern European Jews mixed with a little tiny bit of African, I guess. And again, you see the prominent brow ridge up there, and then you see it go at a very sharp angle to end the brow ridge, and then you see the ski slope, except that it curves a little bit. It's not a straight line. It's like what they call a hook nose, which, I've seen that quite a bit. Then number 5, North American Indian. I almost want to skip that because I don't know what they're talking about with the North American Indian. There are lots of different kinds of North American Indians. Some mixed more with black than others. When we're talking about the Asiatic type, not the black Native American, so I don't know what they're talking about. Some more Asiatic than others, but they got their prominent brow ridge for this man, and the way that it comes to an end, and it curves a little bit more. And I don't even like 6 because I have seen craniology, and I've seen actual nose photographs of modern Asians, and I've seen the studies where they've done the measurements, and their nose bridge is more depressed than that. Their nose bridge is between, 1 through 5 is all like a non-black nose bridge. 6, the classic Asian nose bridge, is really halfway between the first 5 and number 7. Okay, and number 6 doesn't show that, so I think that's a poor drawing. But it really is in between. It's halfway in between. But you can see quite clearly the end of the prominent nose bridge, and you see a pretty distinct curve for what they call the Negro, or us. So when we compare that sketch to Chris, look at his nose bridge. Which one of these would you say he is? You see his prominent brow ridge, but which one would you say it is? I would say it's closest to number 2, the Roman. Yep. Somewhere between the Roman. Yeah, he has a very prominent nose bridge. The only thing is I don't see that Chris doesn't have a bump on his nose like with the Roman number on the number 2. The number 2 is where I think Chris is. Okay. Yep. Gosh. He might even be number 1. He would be 1 if he had a more prominent nose. He would be 1 if he didn't have such a prominent brow ridge. See, number 1 here, the classic Greek, doesn't have a prominent brow ridge. Okay, but Chris has a very prominent brow ridge. But other than that, it would be just like number 1. It's just straight out. It's just very interesting considering how flat his nose is. Okay, so we've seen them all. So now I'm gonna show you how I scored them. So this is how I scored Chris. Now, these yellow boxes to the side were designed so that we would have several people rating at the same time and we could average them. But today there's not even Kofi's, but other days it's just been Kofi and I, so we haven't got a chance to use that right now. So you just get to see how I score them. If you would score them differently, that's fine. And you can get your rating sheet. It's in the description box on several of the videos here. I'll try to remember to leave it on this one too, so you can get your own. But so how I'm going to make sure that I did it right is I'm going to make sure that I'm comfortable with the way that I rated each trait in the red ovals here. Once I'm comfortable with that, I'm going to multiply each rating and make sure that I got my multiplication right in the red box. So I'm going to do that for each one. And then once I've done that, I'm going to add up all the scores from the red box and make sure I got my total right. And I'll do that twice to make sure I got that right. So that's how I'm going to check and make sure I got it right. Okay. For the hair coil, I'm comfortable with the 2. I don't think it's a 3 because when it's cut really short, it's spiky. But I don't think it's a 1 either because when you give it any length at all, you could see that there was an uneven hairline, that's typical of sort of a black hairline. With the skin darkness, yeah, he's not brown. He's caramel, but he's not in the Steph Curry range. So I'm very comfortable with the 2 for his skin darkness. For his nose bridge, yeah, based on those sketches, he gets 0 for the nose bridge. He's got a nose bridge like a very non-black person. Nose width, his nostrils, if we disregard the nostrils and just look at the width of the nose, it's a 2. Maybe a little 2+, but it's a 2 compared to his eyes. Because we compare it to the distance between his tear ducts, and the 3 is when it reaches the iris, even just barely, but just the iris is the colorful part of the melanated part of your eye. So I'm comfortable with a 2 for his nose. His eye darkness, clearly, he has very dark eyes. He gets the full points for that, a 3. And then his lip thickness, he's very nice plush lips, so he gets a 3 for that. Okay. So I'm comfortable with that I rated him right. Now I have to make sure I did my multiplication right. Hair has a 35 multiplier, 35%. So 3 times 35, not 3, see? Misspoke. 2 times 35 is 70. I did my math right there. Skin darkness should be multiplied by 20. 2 times 20 is 40. I did my math right there. This one is easy. Nose bridge is 0. 0 times anything is 0. So 0 times 10 is 0. Nose width, I gave him a 2 and make sure I did my math right. 2 times 10 is 20. I did that right. Eye darkness, 3. That's times 10. That should be 30. And lip thickness, 3. That's times 10. That should be 30. Now let's make sure that I added everything correctly. Go down from top to bottom. 70 plus 40 is 110. 110 plus 0 is still 110. 110 plus 20 is 130. 130 plus 30 is 160. 160 plus 30 is 190. I get 190. I'm going to go from bottom to top just to make sure I got it right. 30 plus 30 is 60. 60 plus 20 is 80. 80 plus 0 is still 80. 80 plus 40 is 120. And 120 plus 70 is 190. So I did my math right, 190. Chris came very close, but no, he didn't make it. Chris is not a black man. Chris is not a black man. He's on the upper end of that, which is not black. So you got a not black man talking about he prefers hair that's like not black women. I really don't have a problem with his preference. I have a problem with him putting it in his lyrics. Imagine if there were black men who had a preference for something that black women have that non-black women generally don't have. Imagine them putting it in their lyric like that, rather than going on about what they like, because we know black men go on about big booties relative to waist. But suppose they said, I only like to F the white women that have a big round booty, which are like naturally like just pretty much doesn't exist. Or only like to F the white women, or only like to date the white women that have, what is something that's common that black women have? Shapely, slender arms. You know, or if it even got to the hair, I only like to F the white women that have hair I can really hold on to, which is like almost never happens, right? I'm talking about like just where it's substantial and not just where you have to grab the scalp and then pull the hair off the scalp, you know. Or where you grab the ponytail and it's not bobbing back up into the back of her head. Anywho, imagine. I mean, that doesn't have to be said in a lyric. Just have your preference. Nobody else is going to put up with you defaming their women. And so, we shouldn't tolerate him defaming us. He didn't have to put that in a lyric. Bobby De Niro has had a thing for black women. Robert De Niro has had a thing for black, but he doesn't talk about what it is he doesn't like about white women. Clearly, there are things he does not like about white women, but he doesn't say it. Right? So that's the problem I have with Chris Brown's lyrics. Yeah. But I mean, he prefers his own. I have no issue with that. The only issue that I have with, I'm just sort of torn. There have been lots of YouTube videos about it. It's like I have adopted sons, or they're not really adopted. It's just our family system. They're my nephews. And they probably score around, I don't know, 100, something like that, maybe less. And I mean, in my heart, I wanted them to breed back to black, which the older one did. He just had a son with a very, very dark-skinned black woman who has, phenotypically, she's a 285, maybe 275. And so, they just had their first child together, and I'm happy about that. But at the same time, I couldn't really be mad if he wanted to be with his own. If he wanted to be with a woman, who was 100, who scored a 100, who was a hybrid mulatta like him. I couldn't, I've been disappointed. I'm not, people liking their own, that's like so freaking normal, like self-love, If I haven't already said it, somebody pointed out to me, I think my sister, God, I hope I'm not repeating myself, but I've done this 3 times because I've messed up twice. My sister pointed out to me a while back that I seem to think the most attractive people kind of look like me. I didn't even know it, but I'm pretty happy about that now. I tend to like around the same color spectrum. I like attractive people of all different kinds, but I tend to be most drawn to people who look more like me. Same sort of hair texture, basic sort of facial features, even body type. No, I'm a little bit average. I didn't know that, but I guess because of so many immigrants, before all these immigrants came, I was short. But since there's so many Hispanic and Asian immigrants now, I'm a little bit taller than average, 5'4.5". Please say the half. I on that one, I no, I don't prefer a little bit taller. I do like tall men, but as far as the basic body types of endomorph, mesomorph, and ectomorph. Yeah, I like mesomorphs. I'm a mesomorph. So I just think it's natural for people to like what they like. Now, if we have a totally different situation here in which black men don't like they don't like their counterparts. It's not natural. It's just not. It's not. I remember, and I'll be done with this broadcast because it's been going on a while. I met this Nuer, a man from the Nuer tribe. He was a kid, actually. He was probably 20 or something like that. About 11 years ago. Yeah, about 11 years ago. And he was from the Nuer tribe in South Sudan. And just long and lanky, tall, typical tall South Sudanese Nuer guy. He was like 6'7", something like that. And dark as night, and just beautiful. His facial features were just so symmetrical. And struck up a conversation with him in the mall. And We talked for a bit. I think the first time I met him, it was just me. And I think he was working at a makeup cart, and all the white women just couldn't wait to get done by him. There was nothing feminine about the guy. Anywho, later somehow my husband met him, and we kind of struck up a little tiny friendship. And we went to an Ethiopian coffee place to watch the NBA finals, I think it was. And so for some reason, Africans from all over the place were coming, not just Ethiopians. And in walked Nuer with his girlfriend or his date, and she was Sudanese too. And of course, she wasn't as tall as him. She was like 6 foot, something like that, maybe 6'1". And they both had this very short hair, because I think in South Sudan their hair just doesn't grow. But they were just this stunning couple. You know, the fact that he was with a woman that was like him, and he could have had a bunch of white women, Mexican women. I don't know about Black American women, probably a lot of Black American women too, because he was a beautiful, beautiful boy. But his choice was a woman who looked like him, and they looked stunning together. They wouldn't have looked nearly as beautiful. She really set him off. He set her off. You know, they just really complemented each other. So that's just a beautiful thing. I mean, I'm not saying you can't like something different than you. And there are people that I, find super attractive that don't look anything like me. And if we got along, I certainly wouldn't. If we got along, I certainly wouldn't decline them just based on the fact that they don't look like me. There's a lot that goes into attractiveness. And then lastly, what I'll say about attractiveness is that intelligence, and this is really true, and you know who I'm going to quote, because I always quote him. Neely Fuller Jr. was talking about how attractive intelligence is. And it really is. When people are sane and knowledgeable and competent and confident. See, competence in something where you're competent, you're not guessing at it, you're accomplished, you're competent, you look sane, you know where you are. There's just something about that that's just attractive. It just transforms, just like love can transform the physical appearance of a person right before your eyes. So yeah, I think that as we become more sane and more competent, we will be more attractive to one another. Yeah, that's all I've got to say for today. I'm going to wrap it up real soon, like in the next few seconds. This has been the Counter-Racist Evolving Engineer for Monday, July 15th. And this will be airing approximately 12 hours from now at about 4 p.m. my time, Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I should be in the house. I should be in the room with y'all. Okay? So, but either way it goes, this is going to post as a recording. So until the next time we interact, whether it's going to be live or whether it's going to be on Memorex, meaning recording, stay safe until then and stay healthy. Try to make as many healthy choices for yourself mentally and physically as you can. Signing out.